Salvete discepoli. In this video, we will explore some Latin epigrams. Epigrams are short sayings, ideally with a witty twist at the end. So here's an example. Mark Twain. The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. It's the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. Okay, so the punchline, so to speak, like the thing that makes you actually stop and think is the end, okay? The epigram needs to have like some kind of a twist at the end where the final words of the epigram suddenly make you like really take notice and like rethink what you were thinking about. It's no wonder that truth is stranger than fiction. Fiction has to make sense. Reader, suppose you were an idiot. Now suppose you were a member of Congress. But I repeat myself. Now, if a thing is worth doing, it is worth doing badly. Okay, now what makes this one so marvelous is, as it was going along, if a thing is worth doing, it is worth doing, your brain is thinking, well, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing well. Okay? But then when Chesterton says badly, you think, what? Wait, no, that's not what I expected. Here's what he meant, actually. The context of this was in Great Britain as they were beginning to try to explore education for girls, okay? People were endlessly debating, well, how shall we do this? Okay, schools were designed around teaching males. And Chesterton's point was, this is a valuable thing. We should be educating girls. And rather than endlessly debate how to do it, let's just start doing it, please. And if we're making mistakes and we can do it better, let's improve it as we go, instead of to endlessly debate it and never actually start doing it. And so indeed, he is quite right. If a thing is worth doing, it is worth doing badly. It's also worth doing better once we figure out how to do it better. Poets have been mysteriously silent on the subject of cheese. Okay, so as the epigram was going, poets have been mysteriously silent on the subject of, you never expected cheese. Okay, now being from Wisconsin, we love cheese. And it's true if you stop and think about it, poets don't write about cheese very much. Okay, now on to Latin epigrams. The reason we studied poetic word order was because epigrams were in the form of a poem, okay? So the very loose word order that we studied is going to appear in these epigrams that we will study in this video, okay? So the fact that, for instance, an adjective might be far away from the word it describes, you're about to see that in action. Okay, so Marcus Valerius Martialis, we call him Martial, was a famous Roman author most known for his epigrams. Here's his most famous epigram, and here's the thing. I'm going to show you in a moment. This is not famous because of it being famous in his day. It's famous for us today because of a use of it that is going to happen in more modern times. Non amo te sabidi, nec possum dicere quare, hoc tantum possum dicere, non amo te. Okay, so take a moment with the vocabulary that you have provided there. Pause the video perhaps and just take a look. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, non amo te. Nec possum dicere, remember possum, I am able. It takes an infinitive to complete its action. Okay, so the translation is, I do not like you, Sabidius, nor can I say the reason. This only can I say, I do not like you. Okay, and by the way, people were flattered if Martial wrote an epigram even making fun of them. Okay, this would be, he was a rock star in his day, and if you actually were made fun of by an epigram of Martial, you were telling everybody about it. Okay, it was a neat thing. Okay, so pretty straightforward epigram. Here's what happened many centuries later. In 1680 at Oxford University, a student named Tom Brown was to be expelled. The dean, Dr. John Fell, said he would let him stay on only if he could translate a random selection of Latin poetry into English poetry, okay? So Tom Brown basically is told, this is like a pretty difficult feat, and he has no idea what he's about to be asked to translate. And guess what? Dr. Fell pushes across the table at him this poem. Okay, can you, young man, translate this into English poetry? He gets to work. He's translating. He writes something on the piece of paper. He turns it around and he pushes it back to Dr. Fell. And here's what he translated. I do not like thee, Dr. Fell, the reason why I cannot tell, but this I know and know full well. I do not like thee, Dr. Fell. You see what he's done here? He's actually made an extremely accurate and rhyming poetic translation of this epigram of Martial, replacing only the name Sabidius, the vocative form being Sabidi, replacing that with Dr. Fell. Well, guess what? Dr. Fell had to be true to his word. The young man had indeed succeeded, and he was not expelled that day. Okay, so as we get ready now to explore the Latin epigrams themselves, be aware a principle that we saw a while back, where you have to understand sometimes you're going to have a verb do double duty inside of two separate clauses. So you may remember, Britanni cibum laudabant, Romani vinum. Okay, the Britons were praising the food. The Romans, okay, so this is another nominative plural, okay. First of all, you had Britanni, was the nominative plural of laudabant, with cibum being the direct object. We're going to reassume the verb over here, okay. So the Romans understood were praising the wine. This principle is going to occur quite frequently inside of epigrams. Okay. Thais. Now, before we start, Thais and Laicania, those are the names of two females. Thais habet nigros, niveos Laicania dentes, quae ratio est, emptos haec habet illa suos. Okay, so here's what's going on here. First, Thais has black teeth. Okay, so nigros is the adjective for the word black. It's modifying the word dentes here. Okay, so if those four words were just one set, together with a period, we would translate it as Thais has black teeth. But then niveos Laicania. Okay, so just like Britannia cibum laudabant Romani vinum, here we understand again habet. Okay, habet is in this clause. Also in this clause is dentes. Okay, so now it's going to be Laicania, understood habet, has white, understood dentes, teeth. Quae ratio est? What's the reason? Okay, so now what's left, we're going to repeat the same concept. Okay, dentes is going to be logically understood as happening down in here, okay, because we're still talking about these women's teeth, okay. Haec, meaning this, haec is going to be referring to the one that's closer. So this one, meaning the one we were most recently talking about. Illa, that is going to be talking about the one we were talking about first, okay. So this one, meaning Laicania, has bought, understood teeth. Emptos is the past participle of the verb emere, to buy. So she has bought teeth. In other words, they're not her teeth. That's the reason they're white. Okay? So she has bought teeth. That one has her own teeth. Suos dentes, her own. So in other words, because they're her own teeth, they're old, they're black. The other one has like dentures, basically. Cur non mito meos tibi pontiliane libellos, ne mihi tu mitas pontiliane tuos. Okay, so libellus means a little book. Ne means lest or so that not. Okay, remember, there's ut means so that or in order that, but you don't say ut non. Instead of ut non, you say ne. Okay, so cur non mito, why do I not send? Why do I not send what? Meos libellos. Okay, so meos is the adjective describing libellos. Remember, this is why we studied poetry word order, people, because those two things go together, but they're not next to each other. So why do I not send my little books to you? And now a vocative, he addresses him, Pontilianus. Why do I not send my little books to you, Pontilianus? Now, Pontilianus was a wannabe writer, okay? And he had apparently asked Martial, hey, why don't you send me one of your little books, okay? And Martial's response is to write an epigram answering the question, why do I not send my little books to you, Pontilianus? Ne tu mitas, okay, so that you do not send to mitas, to me, mihi, so that you do not send tuos, okay, so tuos here is referring back to libellos, so that you don't send your books to me, Pontilianus. In other words, he doesn't want anything to do with the writings of Pontilianus, and sending him a book would only encourage him to reciprocate. Quem recitas meius est, o fidente libellus, sed male cum recitas incipit esse tuus. Okay, so again, fidentus is a proper name. This is in the vocative. And this guy apparently had been publicly reciting some of the poetry of Martial. And what he's going to basically make a joke about is the guy's doing such a bad job of reciting this poetry that it's not even recognizable as the poetry of Martial. And so he says, quem recitas. Okay, so this is, literally you recite, okay, but quem recitas, what you recite. Okay, that which you recite, o fidentus, is est meius libellus. Again, this is why we studied poetry word order, people, because these two words go together, but they're not next to each other. So what you recite, o fidentus, is my little book, said, but cum, when you recite, cum recitas male, badly, incipit esse tuus. It begins to be yours. Okay, so again, the tuus is going with libellus, meaning like your little book. In other words, he's saying, you're doing such a bad job of reciting my poetry that basically it's yours now. Okay, it's not even recognizable as mine.